Okay, so here we are with Dr. Brett Ledley. I am going to be talking to Dr. Brett about his diabetes course and how he's looking to help people undo diabetes. And I just wanted to say welcome and thank you very much for talking. There are lots of things I want to get into, so I'm going to get straight into it if that's okay with you. So the first thing is, and a lot of people speak to me about this when it comes to chiropractors. You're a chiropractor and a doctor of chiropractic. Does that mean you're a real doctor? Well, it all depends on what you call a real doctor. I mean, as you can see, flesh and blood, that's real. I'm just joking. So I had an argument with a medical doctor once as to what a real doctor is. My perception of a real doctor is someone who has a PhD. Brian May, the guitarist for Queen, has a doctorate or a PhD in astrophysics. He has a PhD in astrophysics. So does that make him a real doctor? It's probably a real doctor when it comes to astrophysics, but I wouldn't ask him advice on diabetes or exercise or anything like that. So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got to become a chiropractor and how you got into this field. And I guess more importantly, why you decided to do this Undo Diabetes program. So I got into chiropractic quite by accident. My mom was a physiotherapist and I just knew that it was very hard to get into physiotherapy or medicine or anything like that. I was never interested in going that way. We were always quite unconventional when it came to health and wellness. You know, in the days before protein shakes and before acupuncture and reflexology or anything of that was popular, we used to be regular visitors to those sorts of things. And my mom was deeply involved with alternative forms of healing. So when I asked her if she'd be okay if I went to study with my friend who was in Johannesburg at the time, she obviously broke down crying and thought it would be a fantastic thing. And one thing is she did say to me was she would support anything that I did. So I got into it quite by accident. A friend of mine was studying and I was doing engineering at university and I didn't really see the long vision of what that was going to look like going forward. So I just wanted to be with my friend. And then I had no idea what chiropractic was, even though we'd been through, my mom went through all of her pregnancies in Bloemfontein with some very well-known chiropractors in Bloemfontein called the Peplers. And so we knew what chiropractic was. I just was too young, and then we didn't go when we were older. And I then went to study with my friend and then fell in love with this form or this art or this science of healing. So why undo diabetes? What is the relevance of this? So my why behind it is, you know, I've seen a lot of things come through my practice that I don't feel people are getting helped with. I don't think they're actually being taught properly. It's unnecessary, but the biggest thing is the unnecessary suffering that I see people going through with all forms of disease, back pain, whatever it is, and how unnecessary it is and how preventable it is and how the world is creating this monster from a health perspective. And but mainly I see people suffering and struggling and not knowing where to turn to. And even though I studied chiropractic and we study all sorts of lifestyle and health and nutrition and exercise physiology and even some psychology, I think that very few people or very few modalities of healing can be encompassing all of those things. So I noticed we went to my wife and I, Dr. Vicky and I, spent some time in Peru under a phenomenal chiropractor there. And we realized that there was a lot more that could be offered to people to help them get really, truly healthy and live better lives through various lifestyle choices. And it sort of happened that I started coaching and understanding and then helping people and going through my own journey and seeing that very few people are actually getting helped on a deep, meaningful level when it comes to health and wellness. And then interestingly, I saw my nephew who went through school, all sorts of stresses, like I won't bore you with those details, but he ended up on anti-anxiety medication, diabetic medication, blood pressure medication. And this is a teenager, opioids, all of those, and ended up like losing weight, gaining weight, stress, all of those things. And I saw him when he went to work in the UK on a farm. He couldn't get access to his medication, and he just said, okay, he's going to go cold turkey with everything. And it was amazing to see him come out of that and drop these unnecessary medications, these highly addictive benzodiazepines and opioids that people generally struggle with. And he ended up dropping all of his meds, and he said it was like this veil lifted, and he was starting to live life knowing what it would be like to be normal or to be a person off medication. And I just thought, wow, there are so many ways that we can help people if they just start applying very, very basic things. So I saw that diabetes especially type 2 diabetes, which we're addressing, is very simple to undo. I'm not saying easy, but it's a simple process. And we're looking at all the strategies to get people onto this journey where they can undo this and prevent themselves from unnecessary costs, unnecessary suffering, and really start to embrace life like they deserve.
And what do you get to gain from this in terms of your story? What is your mission here, and why are you doing this? What is the purpose of this for you?
So it goes very deep. I lost my brother when he was 36 years old. He was a year and a half older than I was. And at the age of 36, he died from what we were told was a non-lethal form of cancer. And it rocked our family. Like, he was the eldest of 4 boys, and it messed my mom and dad up. And the suffering that we went through. I went through a mini depression where I lost 10 kilograms. I didn't even know what was happening with me. And it was one of the things that drove me to have a look at unnecessary suffering, preventable suffering. So many people go through life struggling, suffering, in pain, physical pain and emotional pain, and seeing their loved ones struggle and then dying prematurely. I'm not saying his was preventable, but so many people, South Africans, 60 to 80% of South Africans die prematurely. Die. This is your and my friends. Okay, 1 in 5 people, 1 in 4 people are going to die prematurely from preventable disease. Preventable disease. And this is what freaks me out, is that people just carry on. And it makes me mad that my loved ones are at risk of this because of how the world works and because of how people aren't aware of their lifestyle choices and what deep impacts that this may have. So I'm on a serious mission to see if we can get people onto this journey to undo this unnecessary suffering and this premature death and taking away from life. I want to be doing this to add life so that people can thrive and have their best life possible. Just think about that. 60 to 80% of people aren't living their best life. And that freaks me out. So I've driven deep into understanding health and wellness, and I've just chosen to be a little bit more laser focused with the type 2 diabetes to help undo that so that people can undo the unnecessary suffering.
So can you go through this? you're not a medical doctor. You've just explained that. So what gives you the right to help people with something that is clearly a medical condition?
Well, we may disagree a little bit here. What is a medical definition? Does the medical fraternity own the disease? It sounds like that's what you're saying. Like, I'm going to teach people to live properly. I'm going to be collaborating with medical doctors. It's not my scope to say whether they need to be on the medication or not. That's a different story. But health and lifestyle are definitely part of my scope. And coaching and encouraging and inspiring people to want to change and willingness to change. So we work with doctors, absolutely good-meaning doctors who know that we're looking to get people off medication, correctly prescribed and doing it correctly. But diabetes is not a medical condition that only medicine can help. It's a developmental disease. We develop it. It's a created disease. It's a degenerative disease. It's the body losing its ability to handle life, to handle nutrition, to handle things. So my job is going to be to create a lifestyle so that they can then go to the doctor and say, hey, listen, I've lost 10 kilograms. Is it necessary to be on this medication? And they will do it responsibly. So absolutely no, this is not a medical condition that they own the space. We are here to prevent the unnecessary journey that they are choosing to then unwind or undo so that they can live without this impending doom that they're going to have. Because diabetes type 2, it is not a nice disease. There's all sorts of things, you will know. So it's my job to help do that. I hope that makes sense.
So can you tell us what is diabetes? Now, are you talking about type 1 or type 2? I don't know.
So diabetes, type 2 diabetes is very specific. Do you want to know the causes? Do you want to know what happens physiologically in the body? So let me just go into that. So what happens is when a person eats sugar or simple carbs, it's often very quickly turns into glucose in the body. And the body, specifically the muscles and various other parts of the body, use glucose as energy in the energy pathway with the mitochondria, ATP, all of that. So when that system gets overridden and there's too much sugar and carbs getting eaten, with a combination of too little exercise, the sensitivity within the cells starts to change. And it's like, okay, the person ingests the sugar, it goes into the bloodstream, and then the muscles don't want it because they're not using it because of lack of movement. And then what happens is the cells become desensitized to allowing the sugar or the glucose to go into the cells. So there's a mechanism that insulin then gets stimulated and produced by the pancreas and then released into the bloodstream to create a communication process to get the cells to unlock, to allow glucose into the cells. And what happens, if that happens again and again and again, it's like ringing a doorbell or knocking on a door repeatedly. In the end, the system just stops listening. The cells stop listening for this repeated doorbell that the insulin is creating. So it's very rudimentary how I'm explaining this. And what happens is the cells stop allowing glucose in. So there's tons of glucose in the bloodstream, but there's no way of getting that into the cells through the body. And then if this carries on getting repeated, what happens is on a cellular level, the cells stop getting glucose and stop being able to use it. So energy levels drop and a person feels horrible because they are starving at a cellular level, but then there's tons of glucose on a blood level. And this happens again and again and again. The pancreas is working overtime, and ends up packing up. So this used to be called adult onset diabetes until teenagers and then youngsters as old as 9, 7, 8, 9 years old started to develop diabetes because of the poor habits. So now they've had to change it to call it type 2 diabetes.
Is there such a thing as type 3 diabetes?
So type 3 diabetes isn't official, but it's commonly referred to because diabetes in the brain or sugar in the brain is starting to get spoken about as type 3 diabetes or dementia or Alzheimer's. And this is some of the dysfunction that starts to happen when there's too much glucose in the blood in the brain.
Okay, so you've explained a little bit in terms of what it is. So how does it come about? How is this disease developed? Is it genetic? Help me understand.
So I have heard people refer to it as a genetic. So there may be a genetic propensity or a proclivity that a person's pancreas is not going to work as well as the next person's, and that there's an increased chance that there's going to be insulin resistance or sensitivity in the system. There is a chance of that, but it is mostly recognizable today as being created through lack of exercise and poor nutrition, and then gaining weight and this vicious cycle that happens. So no, it's not primarily considered to be a genetic condition.
Okay, so let me maybe ask this in a different way. That's clearly how it comes about, but why does this happen? Why do people develop diabetes?
So this is now going into a very unconventional way. So I've got my own beliefs around this, and there are a few reasons that I think it happens. Number one is society rewards ease and convenience and speed and all of these things, fast foods, all of that. We are told to work harder and to sleep less, and that if we're not working, there's this whole societal norm around this, and stress, and if you're not working hard and like late nights and all of this, that you're weak. So all of these things are creating this vicious cycle or this perfect storm for insulin resistance to happen. And the thing is, all this convenience and instant life is creating a poor landing for everything that people are eating. Governments subsidize cheap food, and it ends up being non-nutritious. So many sugars, cookies, all of the carbs, pastas, all of these things have very low nutrition, and it takes the body a lot of energy to get any nutrition out of it. So it's a high cost but a low outcome when it comes to eating carbs like this, and sugars and sugary drinks. If you ever look at these big cool drinks that you get at the movies or at fast food places, and then you've got bottomless cups, all of this is creating a system that's cheap, convenient, and if you ever look at people drinking these energy drinks early in the morning, it creates a huge metabolism fallout for the body to try and get appropriate calories and energy to function. So that's one of the things, is the food industry is creating these addictive things, the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and really, really unhealthy fats in the fast foods and all of the processed foods that we get. And then you get the brain, which is a highly addictive thing. Our brain is built for survival. We don't go hunting for our food anymore. We don't go long distances. We don't harvest our own food. We don't even go shopping for our own food now. It's like on our app, and it comes to our door. And it comes to our door. We don't even have to cook it sometimes. This is a problem. And until people realize that they're in a system that's creating it, they're never going to be able to undo that. And we help people go through these processes so that they can be aware of that. And then the system that they get into, who do you go to first if you're feeling crappy? You go to a medical doctor when something's wrong. And the medical doctor, doing his best, has 15 to 20 minutes with a person. They're never going to say, you know what, whoa. You were in here last month, same things are happening, you need to be doing this, and this. And I'm not saying the doctors should be doing other things, but society moves that way. And then the doctors aren't helping people get really healthy. They've got very low education when it comes to nutrition. They are very low ways to help prevent disease. It's supposed to be the prevention of disease as well. But when last did you hear someone go to a doctor and say, hi doc, listen, can you help me prevent diseases? I want to live a long and vibrant life. Can you help me make sure I'm not going to have any debilitating diseases? Like, the doctor wouldn't know what to do. And then if they did do something, they're going to measure for diseases anyway, or for normality. And that's not really health, it's still just measurements. And if the person's sugar's up or cholesterol's up or anything like that, they are very handcuffed. They are very cloistered in the ability, not just the ability, in their skills that they're given to help these people. And that's why we want to get in there and really, really help them and collaborate with good meaning doctors to get people onto a great journey to undo these preventable diseases.
So how is diabetes defined? Is there a clear way to describe it? Because I've heard of pre-diabetes, or you've spoken a little bit now about insulin resistance. What is the difference?
So diabetes has a very clear boundary in terms of how you diagnose it with fasting glucose. America has a different system. South Africa has a different system, and it's got very specific markers that then, if the person looks like they're on their way to full-blown diabetes, they're called pre-diabetic, and it's all based on fasting glucose levels in the blood. So yes, it's clearly defined. It's not defined clinically like depression or something like that. They're actual markers that you can measure.
Sorry, let me just see if I understand this. So you're saying that if people behaved in a certain way, that they would not get diabetes?
So absolutely, there's a clear way that you can create diabetes, and that's just eat a hell of a lot of sugar and carbs and do no exercise. You know, sumo wrestlers are well known for like needing to put on weight. So what they do is they eat big carb heavy meals and then go straight to sleep. There are very clear ways that you can spike your insulin and do all of these things so that the body's in this fat producing mode. So absolutely, diabetes can be created through lifestyle choices, and therefore it can be uncreated or undone.
So the medical fraternity seems to be managing it as a disease. What is the difference between undoing diabetes and managing it or treating it?
So a very good point. We're not going to be treating diabetes. We're going to be creating a lifestyle that's going to manage the person's glucose and glucose consumption, and then glucose use in the body. So we're going to be getting the body into a far more efficient, energetic, metabolic state, so that it is managing its glucose very, very well. The medical fraternity take diabetes, and if a person, there are various medications that you can use to get the glucose into the cells, to get the glucose into the muscles, to get the glucose into the liver, to help release more insulin in the body, to help the pancreas in producing insulin. There are all sorts of medications to do that, but it's never addressing the root cause, which is the lifestyle, you know. So that's where they are two completely different silos. And while we're working with people, we absolutely encourage them to be working with a medical doctor so that they're on the responsible amount of medication and the appropriate medication, so that when we start working with them, they go to the doctor and they tell the doctor what they're doing, and most of the times the doctors are approving, and we get the doctors then to reduce their medication, and even in a lot of the cases to stop the medication completely. And then the person obviously needs to continue with that lifestyle, so we continue to support them in that, so that they can stay on the lifestyle that is appropriate and responsible for good, healthy living.
So if you get a person's level down, does that mean they don't have the disease and they're cured? And then what's the difference with that?
So a person can absolutely develop it again if they go back to bad habits, pick up weight, the fasting glucose levels goes up, insulin resistance is there. Absolutely. But if they stick on the lifestyle that we create, they can absolutely stay away from this diagnosis. We'll keep specific checks on them, and we always encourage that. It's less often, but you can absolutely keep the person's fasting glucose levels down. And then I've heard somewhere that if you're under a certain level from a fasting glucose point of view for 2 years, you're considered cured. But that's an arbitrary sort of way. Like, why not 2.5 years? Why not 18 months? You know, that's not for me to say. Like right here, right now, if your fasting glucose levels are below a certain level, you don't have diabetes. And that's the medical way it's defined. So we keep them monitored very closely. They get what's called a glucometer. It's quite a simple device that you check your blood glucose levels. We encourage it when we start to do it daily, so that a person can absolutely track what it's going to do in a week, in a month. And then we have a very cool device called a Whoop that we actually send to the person. It's part of the cost of the whole thing. They wear that. It's called a wearable, and this measures sleep, it measures energy levels, it measures behavior in terms of heart rate and various things like that. So it's a very nice way that I can go online and I can actually have a look to see what these people are doing. Those are the ways. There are lots of other ways to do it, deeper tests, but those are the tests that we use and the information that we use to track a person's progress. The medical doctors will have their own way. This is the way that we have a look at tracking it. Body mass index is a way, but it's a very weak way of measuring progress. We have a look at hip to waist ratio. We use hip to waist and weight ratio, various things like that, to have a look to see if a person's progressing in the right direction. It's usually a trajectory thing. It's not an actual where are you now? It's like, which way are you tracking? It's very, very important to know. Okay, so we've been through quite a bit about the disease. Now, how are you going to be helping people with this? I've seen that there's thousands and thousands of things, YouTube videos, online coaching. It seems like quite a busy place on the internet when it comes to helping people. What are you planning to do, and how is your plan different to others? So I've also seen a lot of things, and a lot of the people address one or two, maybe even three aspects to what we believe creates diabetes. Not necessarily what causes it, but all sorts of lifestyle things. So yes, nutrition, yes, exercise. So we don't know where a person is, so we have a look at a very specific thing. If a person's been doing no exercise, we get them to walk. If they can't walk, they do something called a nitric oxide dump. It's a 4-minute workout. We have a look at stress levels. We have a look at mindfulness. We have a look at their sleep. Very rarely is sleep tracked properly. That's a huge, huge thing, because then it changes how the rest of the day pans out, whether a person can make good decisions, whether they're metabolism is working. Then we have an accountability thing. So we're checking on them regularly, and they've got a very specific accountability process that they go through. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? Where are you with this? You need to up it by doing that. And we turn it into a game. We gamify it with all the technology that we use so that a person is on track with this all the time. So many times doctors say to them, okay, listen, go do this and come and speak to me in 6 weeks. And the person usually stops all the rubbish that they're eating for a day, and then it slowly falls off the cliff. We tracking and staying really in touch with a person. It's like I'm a person's personal assistant when it comes to that. There are weekly check-ins, and then we've got a community that we're setting up to make sure that other people are supporting them as well. It's like Facebook, but it's called School, SKOOL, and it's a great way that people are learning and creating community around it. And all of these things put together create a completely unique system that nobody is doing. You know, most people are like, well, you need to go plant-based, or you need to do this. We don't do anything really crazy. We don't make you fast. We don't starve you. We don't make you do CrossFit, unless you want to do CrossFit. You're not running marathons. We have a look at just going a little bit outside of the comfort zone when it comes to all of these things. And then just building this lifestyle and stopping this drunk monkey from making horrible decisions. That's a major part of that. And there are techniques and tips and tricks that we use to get people to make better decisions.
So you're saying that there's a deep psychology to this, or that people's brains are deeply involved when it comes to the decisions they're making and why they make the decisions, and how that impacts their lifestyle.
So absolutely. If you think about it, you know, and depending on who you speak to, there are between 17 and 30 organs in our body. You know, the heart, lungs, liver, spleen, kidneys, pancreas, thymus. But they all have a role to play. Yet there's only one organ that makes decisions as to what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And that's the brain, and a very specific part of the brain. And most of the times that part of the brain, whether it's part of the limbic system, is making decisions through our emotions. Like, do we feel like it or not? And most people will say to me, you know what, I know my body. I do what my body asks. That's rubbish. The brain is far more powerful than you think. And it's like a drunk monkey or a dictator running the show. The brain does things just for the brain. Not for the heart, not for the liver, not for the prostate, not for the spleen. The brain's doing things to feed the brain. Okay? And the brain is addicted. So there's this drunk monkey running the show that we don't even know. So people make bad decisions knowing that they're bad decisions. That's what's interesting. So we've understood now that this part of the brain needs to either be understood and controlled or circumvented somehow, because you can't trust that. The brain does not have your health or your best interests at heart. No pun intended. Your brain is making terrible decisions day after day, minute after minute, hour after hour, that is killing you. Everybody, me included. So we need to understand that first. And then we need to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. So one of the big things we teach is to notice. Notice, notice, notice. If you're wanting to overpower this part of the brain, which I don't think actually works, a lot of the time it doesn't work. You've got to be extremely disciplined, and that's a whole nother psychology. But sometimes we just need to go around the brain and not let the brain make decisions. And then we have a program. Here's the program. Do this. Don't ask the brain if you want to do it, or if you need to do it, or if it feels like doing it. Just flip and do it. You know, I don't ask myself, should I be exercising? Should I be getting up at 5 in the morning? There's some things we don't ask, like, should I put clothes on? That we don't need to. Sometimes kids don't feel like doing these things. So we need to understand we've got to overpower this part of the brain to actually do what we know is right. My gym program, nothing gets in the way of that. My nutrition, absolutely clear on my nutrition. I don't actually ask, should I do this? Day to day, you can't trust the brain. You need to go around it and say, I get you don't feel like it. I get sugar is there. I get alcohol is fun. I get cocaine, heroin, whatever it is. These things are fun for sure, but they are killing you. They are killing us. They are killing the world. So we've got to actually have a program that we know is right. That's not hard. That's simple. And get that program running and just do it. I don't want to just flip and do it. And in our case, just undo it by doing the right things. I hope that makes sense. We've got to follow the program, end of story. And there are ways that we can do it.
So are you saying that these people are addicted? Are they addicts?
Absolutely.
So what are they addicted to?
We're addicted to convenience. We're addicted to sugar. We're addicted to salt. We're addicted to ease. We're addicted to fast and convenient. That's what we're really addicted to. We're not addicted necessarily to substances, but we're addicted to the lifestyle. We're addicted to people approving of us. I stopped drinking more than 10 years ago. I don't get invited to parties anymore. And yes, I can be the life of the party without alcohol. I'm fun, I'm mischievous, I can tell stories, I can tell jokes, but people are not comfortable. They don't feel comfortable if I'm not drinking. I don't know if it's because it shows them up or they feel guilty, whatever it is, but we are sometimes addicted to people's approval and society's approval and norms. Oh, Brett, just lighten up, man. Just have one tequila, just have one beer, just do this. Oh, what about chips? Getting my children sweets at the shop. Oh, why don't you give your children sweets? Who the hell are you to say that? So there's all of these things that happen. Absolutely, we're addicted. And I'm not just saying addicted to the substances. We're addicted to so many things. And the brain is the major culprit, the absolute saboteur when it comes to that. So just be careful. Can you trust yourself? There's so many different personalities we have all the time. There's 5 a.m. Brett. There's a after the coffee Brett. There's a person who's just shot a good round of golf Brett. There's a person who's had a bad round of golf Brett. There's tired Brett. All of these personalities that run the show. Be very, very, very careful which one is at the helm. Most of the times it's that flippant drunk monkey, and you've got to be very, very, very careful about that. Most people just need to sober up and take responsibility for their lives and understand that they're killing themselves. And then from there, that's when they notice, then they can say, okay, what is the clever Brett or the wise Brett really, really think needs to happen here? And then go from there. Or you just design the process, do the process, no questions, every single time. Sounds so simple, doesn't it?
How does that work? How does that psychology work? Can you help me understand that a bit more? So are you saying they can't really do it themselves and that they need your help?
So most of the times, by the time people have diabetes, 30, 40, 50 years old, they are set. They don't understand these things. And it's difficult. We've got a free program. It's a $1,000 program that I've put together that's for free. And we find that people don't even complete the program because it's hard. It's hard. I get that. Convenience is convenient. So I want to make sure that I hold people's hand and go through it. I love and support them while they're doing it, but I also challenge them to go outside of their comfort, to just make a little bit more of a difference. So I don't believe people can do it by themselves. And why do it by yourself? We've got a free community that we help people with. So that's the simple route. And if people don't go through it and do it by themselves, we check in with them. We say, okay, you need to go onto the paid program to actually get the proper support and the bespoke, high-level accountability, coaching, and support that they need to go through this journey. And that's a year's coaching that we do. We think it takes a year to get them to drop the glucose levels, and then another year to sustain that. So in essence, it's a 2-year program we take people through.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So there's one where people can try and do it themselves, and one where you take them through a much more in-depth thing. Is there a cost difference between these two?
So the Well program it's worth $1,000, but I've put it on the community for free. I really want people to be able to go through that for free, and there's some support with that. And then the Premier program is $4,900 and something, which is absolutely top level support, coaching, apps, technology, all of that to guarantee them. And that we think is going to create tremendous success.
Wow, okay, that seems quite involved.
It is.
And what are the success rates with the two of these things?
So we found that if people go through themselves, there's between I think a 10 and a 15% sort of improvement or success rate. And if they go through our program and they do everything, there's some great research to come out of Britain that there's a 45% success rate with that. So almost half the people get off that medication within the first year. Off all medication. Eh?
Is there any interaction with you or with any support in the free community?
So in the free community, there is a free webinar, one at the moment, where they can come and ask questions. So yes, there is some support with that. But if they're wanting more in-depth support, like nutrition plans and all of that, they need to then do the Premier program.
And what sort of support do you get if you do the full course?
So the full course, we have a look at, so it's one-on-one sessions with me between an hour and 2 hours a week, plus the online webinar. So that's like a 3-hour thing, and it starts off weekly, and then depending on what levels start to change and their lifestyle that changes, it gets to every 2 weeks and then 4 weeks, so long as we're tracking the changes with the technology and the apps that we're using, so that we can actually check full success and trajectory in where they're going. So we're confident that they're on the right track. And then a part of what we do is accountability. So we support a person tremendously. They're checking in regularly. We're actually measuring the changes all the time. And we get to check to see if people are actually doing what they need to be doing to get the results. Because the results don't come from inactivity or not changing habits. They need a strategy and they need a to-do list. And once they start to do that, we start to check that. But we need to keep eyes on them. And that's why accountability is one of the major things that creates success.
So this word gets thrown around a lot, accountability. What do you mean by that?
So the word accountability just means to count. So we're checking, did you wake up this morning and brush your teeth? And I'm not saying that's for diabetes. Did you drink your extra virgin olive oil? Did you go buy the tackies you said you were going to buy? Did you go to sleep when you said you were going to sleep. These are the things that you keep a score of, so that you can, without scoring them, but this is part of the game, is so that they can check, okay, well, you messed that up there, or you slipped up there, or you're going to get back on track. So there's various ways. That's what accountability means.
So how long do you think it'll really take a person who's really deep into this diabetes for it to shift?
So it can start to shift in the first 6 weeks to 12 weeks. Usually, I mean, you've probably seen it yourself that, you know, if a person goes to gym, you don't see it in the first 10 days, you don't see it in the first, but there's a time around 3 months where a person starts to feel things are changing. So that's when the shift changes. Physiologically, the actual body starts to change. Sometimes the metrics get worse before they get better, as in they go a little bit more haywire before things start to normalize, or to show some order. That's a better way of putting it. And then between that 3-month mark and 12 months, there's a significant thing that you can absolutely see that the trajectory is going in a very, very positive direction.
So which lifestyle changes can impact diabetes the most?
So I can't stand these kinds of questions, like, give me one thing to do that will fix everything. So it doesn't work like that. So if you take a rugby team and you say, okay, cool, why don't we test the fly half? Okay, cool, let's put the fly half up against the team. No, you can't do that. It needs to have a team with him. Oh, really? So how do we check? No, you've got to put him in a good team. Get him a good scrum half, a good eighth man. So it's about the whole thing. Okay, there are certain things that are more important than others. We know exercise and nutrition are major things when it comes to diabetes. But everybody overlooks sleep. Sleep will mess up a person's nutrition. Sleep messes up a person's decision making the next day. If a person has less than 7 hours of sleep, they're the same as being inebriated, that they shouldn't be driving a car. You know, there's so many things that have a negative impact. You put all of these together. So we actually start with sleep. Person goes through a whole sleep protocol to get them to sleep properly. And we track it. It's awesome. Then they go through starting to exercise, stop eating the junk that we suggest. There are a few supplements that we give. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the greatest. And then we have a look at specific meditation techniques or mindfulness training so that they can learn, and they can learn to notice. So we go through this education process as well, so that they understand the brain, so that they know the drunk monkey and what dictator and what part of them is showing up, so that they need to be careful, because those are the ones that are making the bad decisions. So, sorry, there's not one magic pill for this. It's not how it works. Sorry.
Okay, so you're saying it's always going to be all of these things as a picture?
Well, some people will have things a little bit better than other people. You know, so some people will be sleeping better. Some people will already be exercising. Some people will not be eating any bread. Some will, it's going to be difficult because they're on other medication. So, yes, we're going to be needing to incorporate all of these things. And we always suggest with people, so we start with a few very basics, and then we have a look at them just stepping out of their comfort zone when it comes to that, because that's where growth happens, and that's where the body works hard so that it can be managing its glucose levels. If it's just exercise we're looking at.
Yes, we're complicated beings, but if there was one thing that a person could do, what would you suggest that would be?
Join the community. Get 8 hours of sleep. Start with 8 hours of sleep. Decisions then will be better in all other aspects.
Okay, so help me understand, how does stress actually change a person's blood glucose levels? How does sleep actually change a person's blood glucose levels?
So stress itself, from a cortisol level, can have an impact on insulin sensitivity throughout the body. But what we found is behaviorally, people are making bad decisions. If they're stressed, bad sleep, if they're too busy, they're then eating convenience foods. That is how it actually then impacts the decisions they make, and the decisions they make then impact the nutrition, lack of exercise, and other things that mess with insulin levels. So once again, the brain and how the brain's functioning, there can be various insulin spikes, cortisol, stress, blah, blah, blah. But the biggest thing is how lack of sleep changes decisions. It creates a drunk monkey. Less than 7 hours of sleep has a huge impact. If a person has a history of bad sleep, they are 50 to 70% more likely to develop diabetes. 50 to 70% just because of history of bad sleep. And it's not because of what it does to the cell. It's what it does to a person's brain, and how the brain then makes terrible decisions, and the personality that allows these things to happen. The drunk monkey is driving the ship.
Okay, so it sounds like you can actually, even if a person's far away from you, you can check to see how they're doing each and every day.
So absolutely yes, their device will be syncing with their phone at various intervals, and will be then putting it on the cloud, and then there are various ways that I can check that as well. Very, very cool. Yeah, and what we can do is we can have a look to see when a person goes to sleep, when they've eaten, what effects it has, exercise, how long they've exercised for, the intensity, what they've exercised for, their recovery period, and all of those things.
Okay, so it sounds like some of these people don't have to be in consultation with you, as in face-to-face. Can you do this all virtually?
So yeah, the great thing with technology nowadays is I can have one-on-one sessions with them through the technology we have with a person's phone. They just need a phone and an internet connection. We send them the device. The device is internationally calibrated. They will have their own, and depending on what country, they will have their own measurement for blood glucose or plasma glucose levels. And the check-in is very simple. So we do that through Zoom or through whatever platform they want to be using. And then checking in with them all the time, like, hey dude, I see that you battled with sleep last night, is everything okay stress wise? And then we'll take them through techniques like that. So they will then be talking to their local doctor or their house doctor to make sure that they are well looked after from that perspective, from a medication perspective as well. So I don't have to be licensed in another country or anything like that. This is a purely coaching space, and they will be dealing with their professionals in their area. Yeah, so I've worked with people specifically, I worked with a family in Scotland, I've worked with a patient in Saudi Arabia, there's been one in Zimbabwe, Australia, and there's a person I'm looking to work with in Canada at the moment. The time delay is always a bit of an issue, but you can always find some sort of overlap, and then we just manage our time with that. Medico-legally, I don't have to be approved anywhere, like I said. They are going to be dealing with their medical people on the ground there with them. So this is purely a coaching space, if that makes sense.
Okay, so say for instance someone's watching this and they really want to get involved, they want to undo their diabetes, or they want to send someone your way. Where do they go?
So the best place to go or to start is undomydiabetes.com. That'll take you straight to an introductory page that gets you onto this platform, and then there's a very simple way that you can go through and watch some educational videos. And if you want to get straight into it, you go to the Premier package, which is in the classroom section, and the free section is also in the classroom section. So all of that is there, and then it'll get in touch. If you want to have a conversation with me to see if this is appropriate, get hold of me on social media. It's at meetdrBrett.com, and all of my socials are meetdrBrett. But come to the undomydiabetes.com.
And is there anything that they need to know before coming to speak to you?
So most of the times they're going to know the important things. They've either got diabetes type 2 or they don't. If they're not sure, then by all means have a check, but they will usually have had their information. If they don't have that, we'll deal with that afterwards. One of my biggest things is to see if a person, we don't allow anyone to join. We want to see if a person's really, really ready. Are they willing to work and do the things that are necessary to do in order to get there? By all means, come and check and see that in the school group, but I want people who are going to come and learn and see how they can absolutely change their lives. That's the Premier package. If you want to kick tires, awesome. Come and chat. Come and see the community. Come and learn what other people are doing so that you can get your life on track and see what sort of help you need. That's why there's such an opportunity here for people to get this done properly, with support from the medical doctors. They don't have the time. They don't have the nutritional education. Well, they don't usually. Some do. And they don't have the coaching skills to take people through a year's program. Which doctor's going to take you through a year's program and meet with you once a week for an hour? That's what this program is about. Who would do that? So we do that so that you or the people struggling with diabetes can actually get the real help that's needed. That's what the difference is.
Okay, so there you have it. Dr. B has been explaining to me how he's setting up this program to undo diabetes and to help people reverse that so that they can get their life back and live a more meaningful life, and obviously a life with greater experiences and a more fulfilled life. Do people live longer if they don't have diabetes?
Type 2 diabetes actually takes between 5 and 10 years off a person's life. And if they have other complications, it can get really bad. I mean, if you think about that, smoking is said to be about 5 to 10 years. So diabetes is worse. Yes, people will live longer if they can get out of type 2 diabetes, if they can undo this disease. Absolutely will live longer. And not just live longer, they'll have more quality of life. That's the thing. Quality of life and time with loved ones. Yes, like you said, that's what we want.
Okay, so there you have it. If you know of anyone that wants to reverse diabetes, help with insulin resistance, pre-diabetic, or even if there's obesity or overweight, well, thank you so much for being honest and forthright in your answers. It sounds like this is very exciting and promising for people. Thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, drop Dr. Brett a line and you can check to see if there's any way that you can be helped. Thank you so much.